Welcome to Equipping Leaders, a podcast where I share tools and perspectives to equip leaders in self-development and team connection. I am your host, Natasha, and I am excited to share today's episode with you. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about character studies and how we as leaders can leverage them for development. The term character study is used in a lot of different contexts. Writers will do a character study when they're building a character for a story. In schools, students have done character studies for people in the books they are reading. These are all versions of character studies, and the version that we're going to use today is most similar to the book report character study. In simple terms, a character study is the analysis of a character, real or fictional, with the focus on specific aspects. For our purposes, it will be a leadership character study, where we would analyze the leadership traits of a person. In 2021, I did a leadership character study on Dwight Eisenhower, and I'll use that as the basis for walking through a character study. Before we jump into the breakdown of a character study, it's important to understand why we would do one. There are leaders across history, both real and made up, who have led in phenomenal ways and overcome incredible odds. We want to study these aspects of their lives because they represent qualities that we're trying to cultivate in ourselves. When we study these people and their lives, we get a more holistic picture of who they are and a different aspect of respect for how they came to be in their notorious situations. A character study can also be a great way to learn more about people that you respect in general. When we are interested in someone, it is likely because they possess qualities that we don't feel we have or that we want to grow in ourselves. So let's break down a character study. When I started my character study on Dwight Eisenhower, the first thing I did was make a list of all the qualities about him that I respect. Then I got to start the research portion, which is always my favorite part of any project. In this research, I was looking for stories from his life that highlighted these qualities. And that could be a story that he told, that someone else told about him, different remarks that people made that were in that context, any of those things. Usually there was more than one story, and sometimes there were dozens of stories and examples. This helps us look at our own situations and circumstances in a new light. The insight helps us better understand and design our own development moving forward. When I was doing the Ike character study, I identified 5 qualities that I wanted to start with, which were his optimism, his accountability, his ability to see people as individuals, no matter how high up he was in the hierarchy of the military, personality management, and the ability to balance important decisions with what he knew and what he felt. To begin, I read through several books and online articles to find stories and examples that aligned with these characteristics. As you are reading through stories and situations from the life of a character, you will find more qualities that you can add to your list. You can dive into those as well, or you can just acknowledge them. Next, you build a timeline of these qualities. When did they show up and in what circumstance? This is valuable because no one is born with incredible leadership traits. The development of leadership skills happens over time, further enhanced by our experiences. When we look at this timeline we've created, it can give us an idea as to how to build our own development plans. Dwight Eisenhower did make huge decisions that impacted the world, but not in his first leadership roles. Those decisions came way later. Intellectually, we know this, but we put a lot of pressure on ourselves to be the best leader right from the jump, and it really does take time and practice. Seeing this in someone that we admire reminds us of their humanity and of our own. Many of us have had a leader or a mentor who has laid out a timeline of their own experiences in some way and shared with us how they got through difficult times and explained how they became the leader that they are today. That is essentially what you're doing with this timeline. It is also valuable to see what you can gain from their experiences that will help you sift through your own situations. A character study does not have to take a long time with dozens of hours of research and qualities on qualities on qualities. It certainly can if you want it to, but this can be an afternoon of research and reflection. You are conducting this character study for your own development. There are a lot of ways to view development, and ultimately, when we consider training, formal education, reading books, attending conferences, listening to podcasts, whatever we consider our form of development, we are looking at ways to gain wisdom from others' experiences and insight to help better guide us. Development is about experiences, and sometimes a series of experiences that lead us to where we want to be. Sometimes those experiences are challenging, and sometimes they're uplifting. But regardless of the outcome of that experience, there is still more journey left for us. If you would like a basic template to get you started, you can visit my website, natashacheyenne.com, for a free template. You'll be able to find it under the podcast tab. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Equipping Leaders podcast. For more leadership development content, you can visit my website, natashacheyenne.com, where you will find my leadership journal with dozens of articles and the Cultivation Cafe, which is always growing and has leadership frameworks, book recommendations, and inclusion and mental health resources. You can also follow me on Instagram at novel_Natasha or at Equipping Leaders Podcast, and on Twitter at Natasha Cheyenne. Join me next week for another episode.